Remember last year? Elon Musk and other tech leaders wrote a letter calling for a pause in the development of artificial intelligence programs. The release of ChatGPT was triggering concerns about AI's existential threat to humanity. That all feels now very last year, because what's happened since then is that AI fever has gripped the world. Investors can't get enough of it. If anything, fears that technology is moving too quickly have been replaced by worries that it's not moving fast enough. But the question of how to handle a faster, smarter AI in the future hasn't gone away. So this week on the show, we thought we'd take a look at navigating the age of AI. It's what we do here on Reuters Econ World. Every week, we pick a phrase or buzzword and go deep on the economic principles and ideas driving the biggest news around the world. So this week, the age of AI. I'm your host, Carmel Crimmins in Dublin. The concept of artificial beings or machines with human-like intelligence has been around since ancient times, in myths and legends. But the idea that it could actually become a reality is way more recent. In 2022, the release of ChatGPT showed the potential of AI to transform the way we communicate and interact with machines. It suggested that the emergence of artificial general intelligence, or systems that are smarter than humans, is near. But what does that mean for the humans? Craig Mundie has co-written a book looking at how we might navigate this new era. He's the former Chief Research and Strategy Officer for Microsoft, and he wrote the book with the late Henry Kissinger and Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google. It's called Genesis: AI Hope and the Human Spirit. Craig, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Craig, why did you write this book?
One of the reasons we wrote the book was because over the last few years, there's been lots of discussion about the downside risks.
Right.
The existential threat, is it going to kill humanity, blah, blah, blah. And while I think those are important things to consider, we felt a few things were missing in the discussion. One, most of those were very short-term in focus, and they tended to behave like humans were just the victim of this whole thing. And, my view is that humans have and should retain agency in this whole endeavor, and that it's going to play out over quite a long period of time. So while the early impacts will start now, there are going to be many other considerations.
One of those considerations is that, in your view, the machines are going to be way smarter than us humans. That opens up some big existential questions.
What we really ultimately have to ask as a species, as a society or some aggregated society, is what is the long-term relationship that we want between the human species and the machine species? I think we have to come to grips with the idea that, we're not alone at the top of the intelligence pyramid on Earth anymore. And we have to understand how, as we evolve together, how do we change humans as they evolve for the good? And then how do we want to relate to this other species that's sharing this place with us? And I think that, that's a deep set of questions that we've never had to contemplate before, at least not outside the realm of science fiction.
Right. And you refer to the AI as a new species, which I'm still trying to get my head around. Is that why you call the book Genesis? Like it's a big title. It's an eye-catching title.
Well, Henry had a penchant for one-word titles, and so partly an honor to that. But partly, as the book ends, we say we're very optimistic, but we do think this is a new beginning for humanity. And we're going to have to play an active role in achieving that. We haven't invented this thing and then we just sit back and become victimized by whatever it wants to do. Our job is to co-manage this evolving relationship and then figure out, what is the mission of humans and what is our relationship to these other species. And in a sense, yes, we're the carbon-based species and it may be the silicon-based species, but it may exhibit all the other properties that we would attribute to another species.
A big challenge for humanity is going to be training machines who are smarter than us and who feel no shame or fear. Train them to respect our world, to respect us. Like, how do we make sure, I suppose, the machines don't destroy us?
In the book, we mentioned this concept called doxa, which is a term from the cultural anthropology field, which defines the unwritten, almost folkloric rule set that seems to be common to almost all human societies. It's sort of a foundational moral and ethical grounding. And babies, are not born with this, but they learn it quite early from their parents and the people around them. And to some extent, my dream is that we will now put a significant part of our engineering effort to teaching the doxa, if you will, in addition to the rules that humans have chosen to live by everywhere on the planet, to an AI, such that as it moves forward, it at least has as good or better a shot at growing up and doing good as the vast majority of humans do. Yet we do have to pay attention to the problem of protecting it, just as we see that there are humans that don't comport with societal norms and values of the bulk of humanity, that we have to make sure that the AI doesn't both fall in the hands of those people who might choose to do things we wouldn't like, and we have to ensure that the machine itself doesn't go in that direction. And so we propose that the way this can be done is to have an AI itself be party to policing up its own activities such that it avoids or even refuses to do things that don't comport with these human rules and values, and can do it on every activity and at the scale and speed that the machines will require. And it appears that there are more people in the academic and at least in my part of the technical community who think that is indeed achievable.
I suppose the risk are there's good parents and there's bad parents as well, right? Well, that happens in humanity, in the world writ large. Are you confident? And most of these innovations in AI are being developed by private corporations. Like, are you confident that the people who are involved in these endeavors will ensure that the AI is, trained in these kind of human norms?
No, I'm not confident that you can just, say, hey, everybody should just do it right.
Right.
And in fact, in the book, it's why we talk about how important the role of government's going to be. But my view is the role of government is not to think that there can be, in some sense, an FDA of AI.
Right.
That basically says, I'm going to examine in a minute way every single thing an AI is applied to, because I don't think that you'll scale, or in a sense, you'll eliminate the bulk of the benefits in order to try to protect against the very, perhaps smaller number of potential problems. And so the government, and in fact, in the book, we talk about the importance of multiple governments coming together to create an activity whereby they can agree that there's going to be some common architecture that they require in an enforced way. The government has to do what the companies are not authorized by our societies to do. We are not empowered as companies to go out and require anybody else to do anything. We can offer them products, they may like them, and we may change the world as many products have, but we can't require things. We empower the government in every country to require things for the benefit of the community. And here, what we haven't figured out yet is, what is it that we want the governments collectively to require? And the book posits that one of the things that they have to require is this process of ensuring that these mechanisms of training and control and review and audit, that they have to become intrinsic in the operation of all AIs, not just a few AIs or the most popular ones, because even the lesser ones will become powerful enough to be problematic. And so this will ultimately lead us, in my view, to a point where, much as has happened with other weapons systems in the past, for example, nuclear weapons or biological weapons, countries did ultimately come together and agree that they had to take some common action and create a non-proliferation regime where people who didn't want to play by the rules, were denied access, or at least their access was constrained in some way. We haven't got to that point yet here, but I think that we'll find that too will be a requirement.
Any sense of what President-elect Donald Trump's view on this will be? His administration takes over next year, and it seems to be more in favor of deregulating than writing rules.
Yes, that's true. But, my sense is no matter which person, won the presidential election, it was, in my mind, remarkable that there was no discussion of AI in the campaigns at all.
Yeah.
And yet it was pretty clear to us that, if not complete, certainly to a significant degree, in the next administration in this country, these AI issues are going to emerge in a big way. And so whether they like it or not, thought about it or not, planned for it or not, it's going to happen. And so I think that Mr. Trump and all of his people are now going to have to come to grips with that. I think that it's hard to know what they'll want to do, whether they'll decide to press ahead to try to seek and maintain domestic advantage in the United States, or think that indeed, this is going to end up looking perhaps more like nuclear weapons did back in the Cold War era. At that point in time, there were at least two countries that had enough nuclear weapons to blow up everybody. And only then did they sit down and decide to move toward a non-proliferation arrangement, because they realized the risk came more from other parties gaining the capability than from each other. And, that was a great thing to achieve and has helped us for 70 years to avoid more nuclear problems. And there's always a tension there. I think that we're going to have to come to the same point here, where every major country in the world is developing AI capabilities as fast as they possibly can now. And so it's unlikely that you can just say, stop. One reason you can't say stop is the bad guys don't stop, whoever you deem the bad guys to be.
Right.
And so the people in this country and in Europe, perhaps, who have often said, well, why don't we just wait and see, or study it longer?
Mm-hmm.
That is out of the box now. I mean, you can't keep it there. And so now you have to focus on moving forward aggressively and figuring out how you want to contain this thing so you get the benefit, but you don't get the problems, whether they're existential or just an expansion of crime or misinformation or what that is.
You talk about getting the AI to help regulate itself. Is that wise?
Well, that's why I say the advantage is we are building them. All right. So to some extent, we do know, and we've already done enough experimentation to know that we can put rules into the AIs even today and ensure that they will reliably follow the rule.
Okay.
The problem is no one's found a great way to define what the entire rule set is for any one country, let alone everybody in the world. Now, it turns out I happen to believe, and I've spent the last few years personally pondering this question, that this is one of those problems that is beyond human capability, but not beyond the polymathic capacity of the machine.
Okay.
And so the fact that we're building it, we know it can be made to be a reliable, I'll say, interpreter of rules, and it has the ability to scale, makes me a proponent of the idea that we can build a trusted adjudicator in an AI. I've talked with many people in the technical community over the last few years about the different ways you might do that and both ensure the reliability and trustworthiness. But I think that's a quite manageable problem now. And in fact, some of us are actually moving forward to try to build these systems in order to start to make these capabilities available.
Okay.
I think when it's just speculation, and this was a lot of the feedback I got the last few years, it says, well, this is sort of radical because we've never had to face this problem before. But if this works, it would be great, but how will we know? And so the answer is we've had to start to try to build some of these things in a way that would allow them to be uniformly applied to multiple AIs in multiple jurisdictions. And that does appear to be plausible.
How soon will all of this happen? Like, in terms of the development of AI is this really powerful force? Because, we and others have reported that some of the AI companies, they're not producing, they're struggling to build the more advanced AI. So how soon do you see this happening? Are we talking months, or is it more like years?
I think it's handfuls of years.
Okay.
I mean, the machines today are not as complete as we expect them to get, but they are super intelligent relative to humans, at least in specific domains today.
Do you buy into the doomsday scenarios that AI could threaten humanity? Like, what's your take on that?
In the abstract, sure, I think that that's possible. Personally, I think our risks of destroying our species, with or without the AI, just by the action of humans choosing to do these things, is probably higher than the idea that the runaway AI is going to suddenly emerge and decide to wipe us all out. Yes, it's possible to think that these machines, as an assistant or an agent in the hands of someone who just decides that humans are bad and we should all go away, or certain classes of humans are bad and all should go away. I think those things and the desire to have an AI help a human do that are much more of a risk to us than the machine, emerging soon as an uncontrolled entity that just decides to discard the humans.
Okay, let's put aside the specter of an AI assistant helping a bad guy or bad girl from destroying the planet. Thankfully, it's a real-world example we don't have on this show. But what about an AI assistant that can get stuff done for you, unsupervised? Kind of like Jarvis, Tony Stark's trusty AI companion in the Iron Man movies. Crystal Hu covers AI for us in San Francisco, and she's here to tell us more. So, Crystal, how close are we to a Jarvis?
From what I'm hearing from researchers on the ground, I think it's still pretty aspirational at this point. But next year, we might see a lot of the AI agents tools that are being launched that may be the first steps to a Jarvis. Supposedly, some of the agents we see can perform personal tasks of booking a meeting, booking a reservation, or ordering a pizza, or some of the more work-related tasks for us. And that will be able to give us a taste what some of the agents are capable of. What the companies are trying to do behind the scenes is to incorporate more of the ChatGPT style large language models into the AI assistants that may already be in our home.
Okay, so what exactly can we expect to see next year?
I think we can expect Apple to push out their own version of Apple Intelligence and potentially adding more agent-like tasks there so we can feel it on our iPhones. And then for home devices, I think both Amazon and Google are working on to add their own agents. And then, of course, there is the agent-like ChatGPT experience. And the Anthropic, the other AI lab in the field, has already released some product of showing what is possible to have an agent kind of control your laptop and being able to perform tasks on your behalf.
For these agents, the idea is that they would be kind of put on autopilot, but they still kind of need to be co-piloted, right? Is that that they can't yet be left unsupervised?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think there is a little bit of debate within even the industry about how involved human should be in the loop. It seems like now for a lot of performance, but also safety reasons, they want to get human in the loop, at least being able to control and having a lot of observability, like where this task is leading to. And if there's some failure, what will be the kind of pain point that causes the failure?
Also, it's about the agent getting to know you, right?
Yeah, part of it is how automated you want your agent to be.
Okay.
If we're talking about a personal agent, then a lot of it is about your personal preferences and kind of getting the data about you, what you feel like on, a Friday night, what kind of music you like putting on, instead of more kind of general capabilities. So that requires they learn more data about you and they have this like reasoning capabilities. For example, if it's a raining day, this is the music that Crystal wants.
Got it.
So that's kind of become the new dynamic.
Craig, the idea that AI will do much of the work that humans now do, we're going to be left as a species with a lot of free time. The mother in me is worried about that. I've got a teenager, I've got a preteen, people already spend a lot of time on their screens. In the future, are we going to be all like sloth-like couch potatoes staring at our screens? Like as humans, we do need labor. We do need a goal, something to occupy us.
That's why in the book, we say what we need. We need dignity, and dignity derives from doing something. In the past, you didn't have much choice. A huge part of the something you had to do was you had to work because you had to work to survive. And so the question is, what is going to define dignity for humans in a world where at least the classical forms of work, may not be as required as they have been from the beginning of time? But that doesn't mean that we can't decide to devote ourselves to some other important thing. It's also why you have to decide in the long term, not perhaps for your sons and daughters, but for the generations that come behind them, what do they spend their time doing? What is their relationship to these things? Do humans themselves want to become super intelligent? This is why I say in this coevolutionary environment, we don't know what our relationship to the machines will ultimately decide to be. To me, what I would tell your kids is they really need to start thinking about how they're going to cooperate with these machines. Certainly, by the time your teenagers are in their college and marrying years, there's going to be, I think, some wholesale changes underway in what humans do to add value to society. I think as societies and as individuals, we have to start to look forward. And I would hope that, you can get your kids to think that they are going to, even from where they sit today, grow up in an environment where they will have continuous access to a polymathic companion. I just think this is an unbelievably potent thing to give to kids. And if they can avail themselves of the learning, the ability to explore more than just by web search or reading or social media, if much of this energy can be harnessed by giving them capabilities personally that they've never had to learn, to explore, to invent, who's to know where this all ends up?
Craig, I just want them to tidy their rooms. But I'm loving what you're...
The robot will do that for them.
My God. Thank you so much for your time.
It's been fun talking to you. I hope it's been useful.
A big thank you to Craig for his time and his insights. A big thank you too to Crystal and to everyone who covers AI at Reuters. You can follow their great work on Reuters.com and the Reuters app. Sound design, music composition, and engineering on this episode was by Josh Summer. Our podcast team includes Kim Vanell, Tara Oakes, Gail Issa, Jonah Green, David Spencer, Christopher Wall-Jasper, and Sharon Reich-Garson. Our executive producer is Leela de Kretzer. Remember, for all your daily news, check out our weekday show, Reuters World News. You can catch it on the Reuters app or wherever you listen to your podcasts.